Courier-Mail columnist Renee Viellaris joins me now live from Brisbane. I'll start there if I can, Renee. This story about GetUp kicked off in the Australian at the start of the week. Not just the quantum of donations and where they go in terms of allocations to travel and to staff, I find those numbers extraordinary, but also reports again today on the same topic saying that because there's been a real fall or quite a sharp decline in their donations, they're worried they won't even be able to keep their well-paid executives on staff.
Yeah, I think what happened during the 2019 election campaign was that a number of people in the community suddenly realised this isn't a cute community, cuddly little group. It is actually an arm of left politics, and they always call for transparency. They're one of the first to call out when they think something, is wrong or something is not actually being put forward in the public's interest. So for them not to tell donors or others what they're spending on wages, including their executives, is quite extraordinary, and I think they'll continue to face pressure. The other thing too is that Centralia is doing a review into the Charities Act and DGR status. I mean, I think some charities like GetUp might find themselves in the crosshairs in the coming months.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, we'll speak in a moment to Amanda Stoker. She gave a cracker of a speech last night on the adjournment debate in the Senate on the issue of GetUp, so stay tuned for that. Also, we talked then about coronavirus. We've talked with Trudy about the stoush again on sports rorts, but the whole other big issue this week has been the announcement last Friday by the Leader of the Opposition, net zero emissions by 2050. It's really turned the tables. I mean, there's a lot more spring in the coalition's step. They've got something to unite behind. It's clearly being seen, certainly on their side, through the prism of an economic debate. How's this sort of playing out around the corridors? I mean, is it something that Anthony Albanese is getting credit for, or are people concerned they might have started this debate too early in the electoral cycle?
Labor's made a calculation. They think that they're on the right track here. I can't believe they're making the same mistake. It's the same mistake over and over again, and to me it's starting to look like their issue on boats that they settled. So this climate issue that they keep falling to the same trap into every election cycle just seems to be playing out again. Now, the issue with 2050 is, one, they don't have, a short-term target. The other thing is, too, when Australian households make a major investment decision, buying a house, you're buying a car, there's two questions they always ask. One, can I afford it? And two, what is the cost? What is the cost and can I afford it? And so it shouldn't be any different for political parties. The first question that he should be able to answer is, well, this is what it's going to cost you, and this is what it's going to mean for industries over the long term. And the point that Anthony Albanese made about coal will still continue over the future years. The issue is that with fugitive emissions, which is about 6% now of our emissions, that does not take into account that. So something's not adding up with their policy. It seems to be a bit haphazard, including agriculture. I mean, that is sounding the death knell for farmers, isn't it? I mean, what kind of farmer is going to want to be a farmer in 30 years? It just raises too many questions. Agriculture is not included in New Zealand's emissions targets, but they expect our resources industry to be included in ours. Now, this is the thing with Australia. Yeah.
This is what blows the credibility, I think, of these targets globally. If New Zealand's out there crowing, and Jacinda Ardern will soon be on our shores and no doubt lecturing the Australian Prime Minister and others about setting a target as ambitious as theirs, but when they've carved out the most significant emissions generating industry out of the target, well, what are these targets worth? And I think your analysis there, that Labor have reopened a wound on this issue, like they did on boats, is very shrewd. And I think they're also in a lot of trouble in the sense that they don't have a short-term measurable target. So they'll have basically an empty line in the budget come election day when they talk about this issue, because it's all on the long finger of 30 years hence.
100%. And the other point to make too, and you really feel this in Queensland, Labor talks about transitioning jobs, but they have to be like-for-like jobs. people still have to be able to transition and pay their mortgage. So if you're getting kicked out of your coal job and you're told you're getting a new job, if that does not pay the same, then it means nothing to these people. It has to be like for like, and that currently where we're sitting at doesn't exist. And the other thing too is, as we talk about, what it means for climate, 3 degrees warming, all that type of stuff, that is business as usual. I mean, we're never going to stand still. Technology is evolving every day. So this conversation is also a bit, I think, mischievous, because we do not stand still when it comes to technology.
Yeah, look, and Scott Morrison should be, sending Malcolm Turnbull a bunch of flowers for getting out there and giving him a kick, because that only just keeps locking in the base that had deserted the coalition on some of these issues. So that's great advertisement there for the soundness in terms of centre-right politics of where Scott Morrison is on the issue at the moment. I want to go to an issue related to all this talk we had over summer about bushfires and how people recover, because consumer advocacy group is pushing the government very hard to standardise the definition of fire in home and contents cover, after finding a number of policies out of the summer have huge flaws in that a home won't receive any cover for smoke, which can cause huge damage, as we know, to soft furnishings and paintwork and others, carpets in particular inside a home. Only fire. Now, most people, if they think they're insured for fire, would be well insured for smoke, but it's not the case.
No, it gets a bit tricky depending who you're with. There's lots of fine print. We saw this with the floods. We've seen it with cyclones over many years. The government should step in here and force them, to have very simply understandable language when it comes to this issue. Because what happens is you'll have this moral hazard for the government, where they'll have to keep chipping in to help people recover. And Scott Morrison wants to be a practical Prime Minister who helps us, practically as possible. And the other issue too is that if this isn't fixed, you'll have this increased problem of underinsurance or people just dropping out of insurance, and that raises its own issues.
Renee, you mentioned the floods. I mean, you've obviously dealt with this as Queenslanders. This is a a regular occurrence, whether it's bushfires, cyclones, or indeed flood. Queensland, yes, elsewhere as well. But I mean, we have this debate. I was up in Canberra for 16 years. Every single time we come out of the summer, we have these sorts of debates about basically an underpinning to common insurance policies and some common sense in those insurance policies. I don't know that a hell of a lot changes. Now, we have measurable commonality in health insurance policies. We now have a standard, what are they? Is it gold, silver, bronze?
Yep, gold, silver, bronze.
Health policies in terms of hospital cover and options cover. Why on earth don't we have some sort of basic fundamentals that must be included in an entry level, a mid-level and a high level insurance policy? I mean, surely this is where the government needs to go.
They have to go there. I mean, it's easier probably for the health insurers because there's government subsidies involved. But you're 100% right. They need to do something on this, and this would actually put the government in good stead with the community, because you shouldn't need a degree to work out what kind of insurance you have and don't have, especially after you've gone through such a traumatic event. And this is why people drop out. And this is an issue for insurers, and we're seeing that now with the health industry. So I think the insurance agencies rely on the fact it's confusing. They profit from misery, and they need a blowtorch.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I find it complex to read, and I've got a law degree. Anyway, Renee Viellaris, got to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time.